Today I want to talk about and vav. So what happens in Torah, and let's look at a column of Torah. Just search for column of Torah and there's lots of websites. You'll see that there's columns in Torah, such as these 4 columns, or on a scroll, these columns. Each of these columns is called a Tikkun. Tikkun means repair, and except for 5 columns, which we're going to look at those 5 columns another time, each column starts with a vav. And let's go back to here. The vav, which is the 6th letter, means and. So I wrote a commentary on Torah, and the commentary's got a lot of sentences that start with the word and. By the way, the commentary is called The Torah as an Enlightenment Toolkit, and I'm going to discuss that during these lectures. But today I just want to focus on and. And is a connecting word. It connects past and future. In fact, in Torah, there's no past or future. There's only the present tense. So now you say, but what about time? So time has been introduced so that there's a storyline. But actually, imagine that you could get the whole Torah in a download in one instant, faster than a second. Bam, you get the whole Torah downloaded. You get everything. You get all the stories, you get all the messages, you get all the feelings, you get all the intentions, you get everything in one shot. And you get all the learning in one shot. But the way that our brains work is our brains work in time. And there's 2 kinds of time. There's linear time and there's circular time. There's linear time and there's infinite time. Linear time allows us to learn. It allows us to have a past and a present and a future. It allows us to have a story. So my story began when I was born, and then I went to school, and I grew up, and I learned to play tennis, and I went to university, and I learned computer science, and then I did an MBA, and I learned management, and I've got the story. And I can tell you that I lived in South Africa or England or Australia, and I traveled to America or Yugoslavia, and I can tell you when that happened, but in terms of the story. But in terms of my life right now, this second, if I could tell you my life right now, this second, all of that would be an instant download. And that the linear time gives us the storyline, but the infinite time gives us that instant in time, the being present. So and is this connecting word, and the story that I wrote has so many sentences starting with the word and I gave it to an editor to edit, and she said, you can't start a sentence with the word and I said, but Torah, this ancient book, almost every sentence starts with and many of the columns except for 5 start with the vav. And the vav, let's look at the vav. Let's go and copy this letter on the next line and put it next to each other. We get vav. So the word vav, which is the pronunciation of this single letter, means hook. And so what happens is, like a hook of a curtain, the hook holds up the tikkun. It holds up the column of Torah, and it sets a standard we want to meet. So as we go through the journey, as we learn, as we see, we have the linearity of past and present being connected with vav, and we have the infinite, where I can say, I need this answer, and I get an instant download, which gives me an answer. When I was a child, and even as an adult, if I had a problem, I would give it to God. I would give it to my dreams and go to sleep, and the next morning I would often wake up with the answer. But today, I've learned how to do that instantly. And a lot of that is to do with 8 years of training, and we're going to talk about that. Why did I study Buddhism? 8 years of courses, retreats, and so on, to learn how to tap infinite time. What happens is, in a nutshell, is when we learn to drive a car, we're doing everything in linear time. So we're learning, okay, I've got to put the clutch in. Before I start the car, the handbrake's got to be up. I've got to take the car out of gear if it's a manual car. If it's an automatic car, I've got to put it in park. I've got to start the car. Then if it's a manual car, I've got to put my foot on the brake and the clutch. I've got to take the gear lever and put it in the gear. I've got to let the brake down, and I've got to put my foot in the accelerator, and I've got to let my foot out the clutch. And if it's an automatic car, I've got to put my foot in the brake so I can move the gear lever from park into drive. And I've got to remember, and I've got to turn, I've got to use the indicator, I've got to watch for people, I've got to look over my shoulder when I change lanes, I've got to remember to indicate. I've got 1,000, maybe 10,000 things I have to do. But I learn and I train. And as I train, all that stuff gets pushed into unconscious, into infinite time. And so my body is doing so many things in infinite time. And as I learn and as I get trained and as I progress, I do more and more stuff. My body, my memory does it automatically in infinite time. And I have access to so much infinite energy. And it starts with this concept of the hook. And remember when I spoke about Bereshit, I said with 6, God created. And we said maybe that's 6 days or 6 periods of time, because the day represents a period of time. It doesn't represent God didn't create the whole universe in 6 days. It took billions of years, as we know. So the Vav, the hook, gives us that 6 with the and with many other things. God created the instant that allowed us to be who we are in this instant, in the present, and to have a past and a future. But we don't want to be stuck in the past, and we don't want to be stuck in the future. We want to be able to get to the future, to have the vision and the dream, such as Joseph had dreams, and other people had dreams, and I've got my dreams, and you've got your dreams, and we dream about the future. And we try and work out what strategies do we need to get to the future, and how does my past help me to get to the future. And the and allows us to bring everything together, so we can hook ourselves and say, I've got a hook, I've got a place, I've got a. I spoke about God being a rock. I've got that point, that fulcrum allows me to work against that, to work with that, to get where I'm going. If you look down over here, you can see there's a vav spelt with the vowel, and the vowels in Hebrew are underneath the words. You can see over here you've got letters and you've got vowels. The vowels are underneath generally. But there are exceptions. There's exceptions in Hebrew, and there's exceptions in other languages. So we have linear time, which has past, present, and future. We have infinite time, where there's only a present, and we have access to infinite capability, infinite intelligence. And we get that partly with learning and partly with intuition. They're things we know that we never needed to be told. They're things you know that you were never told. They're things that you can say, God told me, or the trees told me. Or I went outside and I tasted that mushroom and it tasted nice, and I tasted the other mushroom and I got poisoned. And therefore I know because of my learning. Or somebody wrote a book about mushrooms and said, you can eat these 20 mushrooms, but you mustn't eat those 5. And then someone else maybe said, okay, what do those 20 mushrooms have in common that I can eat? And what do those 5 mushrooms have in common that I can't eat? And we can learn from other people's intelligence and knowledge. And that's why we have universities and why we have schools. In my opinion, school is designed to teach us the operating system. How does our body work? What do we need to eat so we have immunity? What do we need to eat and drink and think and breathe? What do we need to bring into our body to make this incredible hardware work perfectly? And then after school, we have university and tertiary education and general knowledge and general education in the world, where we get knowledge and we bring in more and more capability, but not to fixate on the knowledge I have, but to mushroom and to build. And so it's okay to start a sentence with the word and. It's okay to connect. It's okay to be hooked in certain circumstances. Thank you. Please like and subscribe and share and comment, ask questions. I'm happy to interact.